It's time for another Amber Live update. And this time we have a special guest. It's his third appearance on Amber Live. Owen Keehnen, come on in.
Hi, good to see you again.
People are going to start talking.
I'd be disappointed if they didn't.
Right. As if they're talking about us, they're not talking about someone else. So back in February, you were on because you've written so many books about the gay history of Chicago and plays and magazine articles. And then recently you were on to talk about the AIDS garden in Chicago. And now you want to talk about one of your new projects. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. What I'm working on now is I'm writing a book. I'm calling it something because it's superstitious. I hate calling it a book until it's a book. I'm working on something about the great golden era bathhouse, Man's Country, Chicago, which was here at 5015 North Clark Street from 1973 until 2018 when the building was demolished. There is so much history wrapped up in that building and its history and the whole era of the golden age of bathhouses. There's so much significance there, especially because bathhouses of that age have been very much demonized and all because of the AIDS crisis. You know, they were... their significance was completely wiped out. But they were actually really important places for entertainment, for seeing art, for community. You have to remember, this is coming out of when Man's Country opened, like this is 4 years after Stonewall. So I know, so people are, go from being arrested for doing what you're doing to being able to join a club and, create this erotic wonderland, and that was a huge political statement, to claim your sexuality like that, to say, we're not, this isn't something that is some small part of my life. This is something that's significant and important and something to revel in,
How often did you attend Man's Country?
Probably, I would say like once a month, maybe nothing. Yeah. I mean, I'd say it would average once a month.
Were there other bathhouses in Chicago at the time?
Oh, sure. Well, there's currently Steamworks still.
Oh.
And before Steamworks, it was the Unicorn. There was Man's World that was on Western. Chuck Renslow, who ended up opening Man's Country, he owned the half a share of Club Baths Chicago, which were also here at the time. So that's actually what got his feet wet, and he wanted to make a bathhouse that was like the Continental in New York, somewhere that was the complete experience, somewhere that wasn't like, here's your key and a white towel, have fun, something that offered a lot more, and it became that. And
we've got some pictures. Let's share some pictures that tell us about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
this is one of the early brochures. So it's going to be a new plateau of pleasure. So as you can see, there's very much like a sense of exploration and revelry with all this. It's nothing that needs to be or has to be hidden anymore. There's like a real pride in it in general. The fact that it would have a glossy brochure, and that's opens too.
Easy to wipe off, I guess.
That too. So one of the co-owners of Man's Country was Dom Orjudos, which he's also known as the erotic artist Etienne, who he and Tom of Finland are sort of the big men of gay erotic history. And with that image as well, it's interesting because when Man's Country first opened, there was a Man's Country New York as well, and they were going to be related somehow. But what happened was Man's Country New York went very much the route of like 10 floors of sex. I mean, the Man's Country New York had, I think it was the 8th floor. They had a semi. Like the 8th floor was a semi that was just a big orgy room. Like the back of it, like the actual, like taillights red, the whole deal. But so, and the Chicago version of Man's Country was more like, you know, we're going to bring entertainment here. Rusty Warren was there. Waylon Flowers and Madam were there. I know, some great. Charles Pierce was there. Charles Bush was there, who I just interviewed for the book last week.
Oh,
and,
we have that in common. Yeah.
Yes, and he it was one of his early sort of performance gigs.
Wow.
You know, and also as a patron. And this is more of Etienne's work. And you can see just how incredible the artwork and advertising was for this place. And not only that, but Etienne Dom drew these incredible murals on the wall. So like going up the main staircase in Man's Country, you're going up alongside a mural on either side that are these really hot men going up a staircase too. And then at the top is a naked guy with a lyre, like L-Y-R-E. Is that how you pronounce that? Anyway, I think there's an image of this that Etienne did, and he's yes, right at the, no, that's not him. Sorry, but it's the same sort of image that's right at the top of the grand staircase going to the music hall. And not only that, but Chuck, who was the owner, also used to have Chris Studios, which was in the 1950s, like one of those physique studios, you know, with the posing straps and everything, with, you know, that got around pornography laws at the time, basically. And so there were also these incredible, like, original photos from Chris, the studio, of these models from the 50s. There was artwork by the Hun there, all these incredible things. But the most important thing I think about Man's Country that comes out in all this research was that it was such a community space. Like, this was a place to take the party when the bars closed. This was a place people went for the weekend. Like, they brought like throw pillows, beads to hang in the doorway. Like, they brought decor. You know, that was a thing. And one of the things that I really wanted to get across about Man's Country, which is a very important point, was that this was happening in Chicago. And when the AIDS crisis hit, bathhouses in New York and LA and San Francisco were all closed, but Man's Country remained open. And that's because a decade earlier, some doctors had come to Man's Country, and they were sort of young doctors, and they had an awareness about gay men's health and how that was changing. And so what happened is they ended up opening a testing clinic at Man's Country for STDs, you know, which are now STIs. So anyway, one of the great things about that too is one of the MC, the head entertainer, the head of the music hall, all of that was Wanda Lust. And Wanda Lust was visiting a friend in the hospital who had hepatitis. And to make it fun for her friend, she dressed up as a nurse and called herself Nurse Lust and went to see him in the hospital. Well, this coincided with the STD clinic open, and Wanda took that persona to Man's Country. And so she made getting tested for STDs fun. Like, it became, instead of becoming this shaming thing, it became something that a sexually responsible gay man simply did. You know, it was just the responsible thing to do, and it took the stigma away from it. That succeeded to such a degree that Wanda then and the health providers that were there had a VD van, which was also known as a mobile testing unit, that they took around to all these different places in Chicago, like the hot spots, like, you know, a corner where all these different significant things, you know, bars were and entertainment places for LGBTQ people. Wanda would jump out of the van in her full nurse garb, you know, 6'7" with her heels on, because Wanda was very tall, and she would run into the bars and try to get people to come out and get tested for STDs. And if you went with Nurse Lust, she gave you a cookie. And what happened was, it might all seem very silly, but in the first week, they were on the streets. 1,000 people got tested for STDs through the mobile testing units. So when AIDS hit, Man's Country had this long-standing history of a relationship with the Chicago Department of Health as a place of education and a place of testing. So that was the reason it could remain open, you know? And so it had a very different trajectory.
How many lives did Wanda Lust save? You know, that's or prolong, perhaps. Now, you wrote about Wanda in one of your plays, which
Wanda, yes, Wanda has a piece in that too. Wanda's one of those people in my history of Chicago, in studying the LGBTQ history of Chicago, that her life was very short, but very significant, and I really think it's important to celebrate our pioneers, especially because, you know, there's so many, even in the story about Man's Country with STD testing, there's so many lessons in there, you know, but all that history is fragile too. I mean, there's the different clippings about the VD van, but to know the whole story and how it built up and the repercussions and why this happened. I mean, it's an incredible, fun treasure hunt, really, to research stuff like this. And I'm having a blast doing the history of Man's Country.
You've written several other books. Where are you in the process of this one? Would you say you're?
I've done a lot of it. My OCD has been in overdrive with this. I would say like 80% done. Like, I'd say easily by the end of the year. I work pretty fast. So I've worked with Tracy Bain, writing a biography of Chuck Renslow. So I'd done a lot of the research from Man's Country, but when Tracy and I did the bio of Chuck, we were under very much of a time constraint to get the book finished. And so I could see that there was so much more there, it felt like, when I was doing it. And then, you know, there wasn't the time. But then what happened afterwards is the building itself was demolished in 2018 after Man's Country formally closed, because it was still open when Tracy and I were working on the book. So it felt like the time, now that the story was there, it felt like the time to sort of capture it, you know. And I'm working a lot in conjunction with the Leather Museum and Archives here in Chicago, which has pretty much everything of Chuck's, a lot of Dom's artworks. They have the Etienne Auditorium, which is huge murals of those beautiful Etienne erotic murals all around with theater seating. It's a beautiful, beautiful theater.
Well, Owen, I want you to come back and tell us more about when the book.
I will be happy to. Yeah, it's an incredible journey. It's an incredible ride.
Well, thank you so much for taking us along with you on that ride. Thank you, Owen, and looking forward for you to coming back for your fourth visit.
I will always get, yeah, I'm as close as a telephone call.
Oh,
Or a text.
all right, very good. Thank you very much, Owen.